Picture a dusty storage barn on the outskirts of Nashville, its padlocks rattling under a restless wind. Inside, 21 rusted doors stand in a crooked line, each hiding the strangest obsession of a country legend you thought you knew. Publicists spent fortunes burying these stories, but the rust sings louder than hush money, and today every creaking hinge swings wide. Some collections are harmlessly eccentric, others drift into nightmare territory, and one still rides locked to a tour bus engine like a devouring guardian. Follow me through the dim corridors, because the last door belongs to David Allan Coe, and nobody leaves the same after peeking inside. Johnny Cash, the man in black, never told audiences that a stuffed crow stared over his shoulder every time he wrote a heartbreak anthem. He met the bird on an Arizona filming set, claimed it mimicked the boom-chicka rhythm of his guitar, then had it mounted when it died, glass eyes fixed on the lyric desk in Tennessee. The crow was only scouting for a larger flock. Elk-heads, bobcats, even a coy wolf posed mid-snarl, each tagged with a song title scrawled in silver marker. Visitors described feeling watched by a courtroom of frozen witnesses, yet Cash swore the silence helped him confess truths no living soul could accept. If a taxidermy jury chills you, Tammy Wynette's fragile doubles are waiting behind the next door. Tammy Wynette kept mannequins of herself long before wax museums begged for licensing rights, but hers lived in a velvet-lined chamber hidden behind a rotating closet wall. Full-height replicas captured every career milestone, from the bruised heart housewife gown of Stand By Your Man to the rhinestone power suits she wore while negotiating record deals. Staff whispered that Tammy rehearsed tough conversations with the statues first, asking them whether another divorce would ruin her legacy. Bleak nights saw one figure relocated to the foot of her bed, eyes unblinking, lips curled in plastic reassurance. Leave those silent twin queens behind, because Waylon Jennings was busy arguing with metal that answered back. Waylon Jennings accepted a vintage gun cabinet from a superfan who claimed it once belonged to an Old West outlaw, then discovered the walnut case groaned like a floorboard anytime the room went quiet. Midnight recording sessions halted as faint clicks echoed from locked drawers, as though revolvers were spinning themselves to choose the next note. Jennings bolted the cabinet shut with iron chains, yet kept it in his writing den anyway, insisting the eerie percussion pushed his bass lines deeper. Friends begged him to dump the whole cursed relic in the Brazos River. Waylon only laughed, saying it was cheaper than hiring a drummer, but haunted wood feels tame once you meet Loretta Lynn's war-torn dolls. Loretta Lynn's private museum is famous, but few outsiders ever glimpse the off-limits nursery where shell-shocked dolls guarded Civil War artifacts. Tiny porcelain faces cracked by humidity wore ragged Union and Confederate ribbons, each holding a real mini-ball pulled from battlefields near her Kentucky home. Loretta believed spirits followed anything that once tasted gunpowder, so she sang lullabies to the collection after tours, calming restless soldiers she felt pacing the creaking floor. On moonlit anniversaries of Antietam, she swore the dolls shifted formation, blue coats sliding left, gray coats taking aim, proof that dead generals still rehearsed lost maneuvers. March past those toy infantrymen, and you'll stumble into Hank Williams Sr.'s ink-dark notebook pile. Hank Williams Sr. died young, but his family later uncovered a battered suitcase jammed with spiral notebooks that smelled of medicine and midnight coffee. Inside, pages brimmed with stick-figure diagrams of graves opening, arrows pointing toward the next great show, lyrics scribbled beside cryptic dates that never arrived. Some passages read like rehearsal schedules for a funeral march he expected to headline. Scholars argue whether the writings were poetry or prophecy. What unnerved relatives were the blank spaces labeled with the names of bandmates still alive, as though Hank planned to pencil in their departure times later. Before those empty blanks could fill, Patsy Klein stitched her own unsettling tribute upstairs. Patsy Klein stored innocence and terror on the same shelf when she curated an attic gallery of antique dolls rumored to use real human hair. Collectors swear Victorian craftsmen wove the locks straight from orphanage barbers, and Patsy could not resist their melancholy gazes. she arranged them in semicircles around a vintage radio, then played acetate demos while polishing her stage boots. Neighbors recount storms where the dolls' mouths seemed to widen during thunder, muffled harmonies floating through plaster walls like children humming down a well. If those doe-eyed choristers give you nightmares, Porter Wagoner's mannequin masked ball will feel like waking mid-scream. Porter Wagoner loved bright suits so much he duplicated himself in fiberglass to see how rhinestones caught every angle of stage light. Behind a padlocked basement door, 7 life-size mannequins wore retired nudie jackets, but their faces were warped carnival masks, grotesque grins, elongated noses, hollow eyes. Porter positioned spotlights on timers, so passing through the dark hall at 3 a.m. meant a sudden blaze revealing a court of costumed phantoms. Roadies dared each other to spend a full hour among them. No one lasted more than 15 minutes without hearing fabric rustle. Escape quick, because George Jones frames felons like family portraits around the next bend. George Jones idolized outlaws so fiercely he lined his studio walls with vintage mugshots instead of platinum records. Baby-faced bank robbers, moonshiners in suspenders, even one smiling assassin stared down at the mixing console while George slurred harmonies. He toasted each photograph before tracking vocals, believing their lawless energy kept his voice dangerous. Some images had bullet holes where courthouse deputies tested cameras. Jones highlighted the punctures with gold leaf, turning violence into gilded punctuation. He staged mock trials at 2 a.m., pacing before the mugshots while bandmates acted as jury. George tapped his glass like a gavel, asking whether each crook merited mercy. When they yelled guilty, he spun the matching record backward, calling the scratchy howl eternal sentencing. Cleaners found tin cups wired beneath the photos, as if the prisoners begged for bail. Feel the bullet breeze and move along, because Dolly Parton keeps an even tinier army standing at attention behind mirrored doors. Dolly Parton's Dollywood charm hides a collection small enough to fit in shoeboxes, yet eerie enough to rattle seasoned stagehands. Exquisitely detailed miniature replicas of herself. Each 6-inch dolly wears a perfect tour costume, wig fibers curled by artisans using warmed needles, microphones carved from silver beadheads. Before new album launches, she arranges tomorrow's wardrobe on the dolls first, testing color schemes like a general moving troops across a map. Urban legend claims 2 lucky figurines ride in her luggage for every flight, their tiny eyes supposedly fogging whenever turbulence threatens a crash. But even porcelain positivity pales next to Merle Haggard's roadside mortuary art. Merle Haggard spent years driving tour buses over desert highways, and whenever he spotted fresh roadkill, he ordered the driver to stop, not for mercy, but for materials. He preserved coyotes with glass jars of chemical brew, wired jackrabbit bones into skeletal chandeliers, and nailed rattlesnake skins onto cigar boxes he gifted to bluesmen. His California cabin evolved into a grotesque folk museum where every wall plaque listed the mile marker where the animal fell. During writing blocks, he'd tap antler chandeliers so they clacked like prison bars, a percussive memory of his time in San Quentin. If recycled death unnerves you, June Carter's jewelry of braided remembrance whispers from the next velvet case. June Carter Cash, raised on mountain gospel and funeral hymns, collected Victorian mourning jewelry woven from human hair. Rosettes of braided strands sat beneath crystal cabochons engraved with scriptures, each locket bearing initials long forgotten by their original families. June wore certain pieces on stage, claiming the silent companions steadied her nerves better than whiskey. Back home, she arranged the relics around flickering beeswax candles, reading psalms aloud so the dead heard fresh verses. June's attachment went beyond casual antiquing. She traced the braids with a jeweler's loupe, reading diets from Sheen, asking questions no diary captured. One ring with an albino strand became her talisman against stage fright. She pressed it to the microphone just before spotlight glare. During winter blackouts, she lit coal oil lamps, sending halos through the lockets and insisting the departed deserved an encore. But the flickering faces of the past look tame once Glen Campbell pulls horror straight out of Hollywood makeup rooms. Glen Campbell's Glendale retreat housed a steel door bunker where he stored latex masks from legendary slasher films, some refurbished to carry his own grin. Motion lights snapped on to reveal Freddy-like visages reorganized after every tour, though Glen swore nobody entered the vault but him. He'd sometimes rehearse guitar solos while wearing one, sound bouncing eerily behind. The rubber strings of sweat distorting his vibrato into something otherworldly. When sober, he laughed the collection off as harmless memorabilia. When the bottle ran low, he'd ask visitors whether they could still see his real face, slip that mask back on the shelf, because Tanya Tucker's Forever Zoo waits with glassy eyes. Tanya Tucker never truly said goodbye to a pet, choosing instead to immortalize them in full taxidermy poses that greeted guests near the foyer staircase. Dogs lounged on velvet pillows, a parakeet clutched sheet music snippets in lacquered claws, and in the corner perched the infamous monkey dressed in tiny denim overalls, guitar slung mischievously across its chest. Partygoers swear motion sensors triggered a speaker that played chimp laughter whenever someone stepped too close. Tanya claimed the preserved troupe offered constant applause without asking for backstage passes, yet applause turns hollow beyond the next door, where Kenny Rogers seats wooden mouths around a never-ending poker game. Kenny Rogers collected ventriloquist dummies the way other stars collect Grammys, amassing 40 carved characters he named after riverboat gamblers. He arranged them around a green felt table under low amber bulbs, each dummy's hand fixed on miniature cards mid-deal. Hidden speakers wheezed banjo riffs, so guests felt the timber-jawed gamblers breathed music. On poker nights, Kenny dimmed bulbs until dummy eyes shimmered like river water. Road managers swore that whenever the crew dealt a phantom royal flush, the next venue sold out. Not all enjoyed the stakes. One backup singer fainted when a mechanical hand brushed her ankle, and Kenny logged it in a notebook titled "House Wins Again." Push through those stiff spectators, and Conway Twitty's bridal wardrobe will leave lace burned onto your retinas. Conway Twitty secretly owned more wedding dresses than most small towns see in a year, hanging dozens of ivory and champagne gowns inside a cedar-scented loft. Some he bought at antique auctions, others arrived from fans who mailed family heirlooms hoping for a love song dedication. Conway labeled each dress with a fictional bride's name and composed unfinished ballads inspired by her imagined heartbreak. During recording hiatuses, he'd walk the aisle between the gowns, humming melodies that swayed the lace like willows in afternoon heat. But spectral brides give way to stranger devotion in Reba McEntire's hidden shrine to a woman nobody can identify. Reba McEntire's mansion contains a narrow staircase leading to a loft few have entered, a room devoted entirely to an unknown 19th century lady whose painted portrait dominates the far wall. Beneath the watchful gaze sit glass cases of the woman's letters, pressed violets, and a satin parasol bleached by time. Reba discovered the trove inside a dilapidated Oklahoma estate she purchased early in her career and felt compelled to preserve the stranger's legacy. She sometimes addresses the portrait before major decisions, thanking the mysterious benefactor for unspoken guidance. Descend from that silent confidant and you'll find Buck Owens sweeping together shards of shattered self-reflection. Buck Owens feared bad luck but collected it anyway, storing cracked mirrors from hotel rooms, tour buses, and backstage green rooms labeled with dates of every professional setback. He believed each splintered reflection trapped the moment's misfortune so it could never strike again. The mirrors leaned against barn walls like jagged silver tombstones, faint stage lights bouncing wild patterns across hay dust moats. Bandmates joked the place looked like a broken funhouse, yet Buck insisted he felt lighter every time another pane shattered during an argument. Stroll past the glinting graveyard and meet Charlie Rich, whose porcelain jesters grin even when fire melts their faces. Charlie Rich surrounded himself with custom porcelain clowns that mirrored his own expressive eyebrows, each statue perched on a mahogany shelf in lipstick red cowboy boots, After a studio electrical fire scorched one clown's cheek into a molten sneer, Charlie kept it front and center as a reminder that fame warps smiles when heat rises. He rearranged the troupe nightly, claiming their new positions foretold next week's chart numbers. Guests reported waking to the soft clink of ceramic when nobody else was awake. If clownish prophecy feels unsettling, Barbara Mandrell raises the stakes by inviting photographs of the permanently departed into her parlor. Barbara Mandrell's Victorian sideboard hides leather albums filled with sepia images of the deceased posed like they were merely dozing, a 19th century practice known as memorial portraiture. Mandrell became fascinated while researching period fashion for a concept record and began collecting till she owned nearly 1,000 such photos. Before somber studio sessions, she'd leaf through the pages, tracing lace collars and closed eyelids, inviting the stillness to settle over her vocal delivery. She claimed the pictures taught her to hold a note the way families once held a final breath. Yet mortal stillness pales beside Roy Acuff's heirloom hoods, stitched for ceremonies nobody can name. Roy Acuff, dignified king of country music, stored a trunk of silk robes and horned masks sourced from anonymous estate sales, each piece embroidered with arcane symbols that even museum curators failed to translate. He reportedly wore the robes during sunrise fiddle practice on his back porch, believing the fabric's weight pressed egos flat to the ground. Neighbors catching glimpses through pines described a silhouette that looked half minister, half minotaur. Roy never explained the garments, only muttered that tradition sometimes travels without paperwork. Try to decode that, and you'll hear chains rattling from David Allan Coe's rolling fortress of prison memories. David Allan Coe's tour bus carries its own furnace of ghosts, a steel ammunition trunk welded beside the engine, inside which paintings of demons in orange jumpsuits curl around letters from convicted killers. The bus heat bakes oil paint until the devil's eyes blister, a look Coe calls authentic hellfire aging. Between shows, he unlocks the trunk, reads fresh correspondence scrawled on commissary paper, and slides new sketches under bungee cords so the roar of the diesel can teach them how freedom sounds. He swears the rattling metal whispers chord changes nobody on the outside could invent. When the trunk snaps shut, our tour through country music's strangest closets finally ends, but your own curiosity is just starting. These 21 collections prove the line between inspiration and obsession is thinner than a guitar string under stage lights. From Cash's crow that never stops judging to Coe's boiling hymn to incarceration, each relic shows how applause can't drown private echoes. Fame buys warehouse space for hidden fears, but it can't pay the rent on silence. So the legends fill their rooms with dolls, bones, masks, and letters until the walls hum louder than any crowd. Maybe the next vinyl you spin came from a night when a ghostly mannequin nodded approval, or a shattered mirror deflected doubt. So what secret shrine is your favorite modern star arranging right now, and would you still sing along if you saw it? Tell me in the comments which door you'd dare to open, tap the like button if curiosity kept you on board, and hit subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming trip into rock and roll's lost diaries, where taped confessions wait like dynamite behind studio foam. Before you shut your own closet tonight, consider how easily keepsakes mutate into confessions after the lights fade. Every backstage pass, snapped guitar string, or ticket stub could end up testifying about your hidden fears someday. If these tales shook loose a memory of something strange you've kept, share it below. We won't judge, we'll simply lower the lantern and listen. Smash the bell so the algorithm learns you crave more shadows, and get ready for next week, when forgotten love letters rewrite the legend of a rock idol you thought was untouchable.